Hi everyone, and welcome to our WGSN Hangout live from the Lincoln Center here at Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week in New York, where WGSN is the official trend sponsor. My name is Rachel Arthur and I'm a senior editor here at the company, and I'm joined by members of our US content team to talk today about the trends we've been seeing coming down the runway. So I will start off by letting them introduce themselves and then we'll get straight into it. So
I'm Sheila Ahmed, I'm the VP of North American Content at WGSN.
I'm Aria Hughes, I'm the Associate Retail Editor at WGSN.
I'm Jacqueline Jones, I'm the Senior Women's Wear Editor at WGSN.
And I'm Jamie Barr, I'm the Footwear and Accessories Editor.
Okay, great. So just a tiny little bit of housekeeping for anyone joining from home. Please do send us your questions. You can do so through the Google Plus app, or alternatively send it to us over Twitter using WGSN Hangout as the hashtag. So maybe to kickstart, Sheila, let's go with you straight away. What are the big themes, like overarching ideas that you've been seeing so far this week?
Well, I am loving the urban explorer trend, which I kind of coined that, which is really taking lots of utility dressing, really driven by all of the outerwear we've been seeing, and taking it and infusing it with sports theme, race ski, hunting, and really kind of anything that has a little bit of an outdoor feeling to it. Also really has a lot of this, I think also influenced a lot by what's happening at the Olympics as well. So I think outerwear is going to be a huge category that's really part of that whole trend. Been seeing really a lot of really interesting luxe outerwear that I think is really going to be a real driver for next fall.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of this whole, the great American outdoors. We're seeing some Western influences, some hunting influences, some ski influences. So it's taking all of these, cold weather American pastimes, using these luxe fabrics, heavyweight wools, lots of plaids, but also intarsia sweaters.
Definitely.
Talking about outerwear being a key item, sweaters are the next biggest thing. Lots of texture and heavyweight, oversized sweaters.
I think designers are really influenced by what's happening around the world in terms of the weather, and
Yeah.
it's been really quite extreme here in New York and really extreme all across the United States. So I think designers have really taken that into consideration as they're designing their collections.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every day I want to be wearing a
Boots,
very cozy
yeah.
sweater, boots, and dressed as warm as possible.
And that's definitely had an effect on footwear as well, especially because we're seeing, on the runways, we're seeing tons of pleated soles, we're seeing tons of sport utility, eyelets and, laces, and tons of, these sorts of boots that are really meant for the outdoors and snow and hiking and this entire theme. So.
Yeah. My outfit is always driven by what is going to keep me warm every day, and I think designers have really addressed that throughout their collections.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've also been seeing a lot of indigenous craft work. That's really has been bubbling up. Anything, it can be Navajo, American Western, it can be Eastern European. There's also a lot of influences from South America. So I think that whole kind of sort of DIY trend is really translating also into very, very high-end lines such as Altrazara, Suno.
We saw a little bit of it at Prabal, yeah. Yeah, I think that has to do with a lot of consumers are really more and more interested in where things are made, and they want to know that what they're buying is actually really special.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and on the flip side of that, true luxe American sportswear, really driven by luxury separates, I think is really happening as well.
Yeah, I haven't seen evening wear look so fresh. I mean, it looks like something that is translatable to various places. Like, it's not just red carpet. We love what Prabal did with the cozy knits and the really flirty chiffon and silk skirts. It just looked really new and cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of also a balance between this casual look and these really formal looks. A lot of the times you have these casual tops with flowing, gorgeous chiffon maxi skirts or midi skirts. Midi is definitely one of the most important length, and we're seeing in skirts and also pants. So wide leg pants, 1940s inspiration, Katharine Hepburn.
Yep. Tons of crop trousers.
Oh, so many.
Everywhere.
Wide
leg. Yeah.
Relaxed.
Menswear shoes too.
Yeah, tons of menswear and man-tailored influenced shoes everywhere. There's Oxfords, there's monk straps, there's everything. So I think that is going to be something to look at also.
Yeah.
I also think there's a lot of really architectural silhouettes coming down the runway, and very architectural, lots of blocking, lots of layering, lots of piecing happening as well. And I think color is a real driver for that classification. So a lot of color coming down the runways within these architectural silhouettes, within that context.
Tons of layering.
Yep.
That's one of the main things we've seen too.
I mean, color is definitely one of the things that's made me so excited about this catwalk season.
Yeah.
Alcazar is one of my favorite examples because they use these kind of muted and colored neutrals with these pops of bright, bright fuchsia, bright orange. Those are two of the definitely the most important colors we're seeing. But this Chinese New Year red is everywhere,
scarlet, yeah.
and it's worn back to tan, it's worn back to gray, to navy. So it's about having a muted color offset by this really pop bright.
Wang also did color really well. I mean, everyone was so excited about the production value of his show with the heat-infused fabric that changed as the models rotated, which was really exciting.
Yeah, he always puts on a good production, and it's always something to look forward to and to kind of look to as, okay, this is a goal and this is the direction that fashion's going in.
And what about color in general? Otherwise, I mean, you've talked about red. Are there other kind of key shades that we should be thinking about to wear for fall?
I mean, in terms of apparel, I think cobalt is definitely phasing out a little bit this season, which is exciting because it's been around the past few years so much. Definitely more of a warm story, but when we are seeing the cools, I'm seeing a little bit of this peacock blue, this dusted peacock blue. Also, teal is still happening a little bit. And other than that, really the red, the fuchsia, and the orange. In terms of accents, one color that's surprising me that I've been seeing is lime green. So that's
Lots
interesting.
Of lime, but more very neon. And bright. And we saw that seasons ago.
Right,
we thought we were kind of done on that, and it's back with a vengeance all over the runways.
I'm seeing it on high shine fabrics like silks, silk file,
fur too.
Yeah.
So, what about the black and white?
That's black and white is still happening.
Still everywhere. It's not, we were talking about this before a little bit, it's not quite as deliberately sporty.
Yeah.
It's being done in a little bit more of a sophisticated way. But as you said, neutrals too are something that's really important. We saw, the catwalks were inundated with them for spring, and I think especially as we get into, London, Milan, and Paris, it'll definitely be something to watch because I really think those will evolve. They're very sophisticated, pair well with everything from a retail perspective, and I think it's really going to hit hard when we go into the next cities.
And Jamie, those accent colors, are they appearing in footwear as well, or?
Red definitely is the top color for sure. This true bright red. Some of them are a little bit more orange casted, as Jacqueline said. There's some orange, but cobalt's not entirely phasing itself out yet for accessories and footwear. It's still there a little bit, especially in these fantasy furs, the longer haired furs. But it's definitely not there as much as it used to be. I mean, it's been a huge color for the past, I'd say, 3 seasons or so, if not more. So it might be on its way out.
I also definitely want to say that brown is coming back.
Yeah.
I've been seeing brown a lot of shows. Rag & Bone had it.
Yeah, they described it as almond, and typically I don't love brown, but I love the way Rag & Bone showed it.
When it's being done, it has this deep, rich red cast to it, so it doesn't look too yellow, and it's a warm, really nice, rich color.
Yeah, and it's a neutral that'll pop great against all those accents we just talked about, like the red and the
Yeah,
floros.
definitely.
Yeah, so that's definitely interesting.
Okay, and how about print then? Moving on from color, are we seeing much of that this season?
I mean, we were talking about print not being as there this season.
But I think within the last day, we've been seeing a little bit more print. And I think as time goes on with the Milan and Paris shows, we'll see more print. It's been more of a printless season to me, as in comparison to seasons past. But
so far, oversized plaids, tartan, really lending themselves well to the blanket coats and the brushed wools and that whole outdoorsman.
Right, the buffalo checks.
Some digitized prints.
Yep.
Yeah,
we
saw
saw some
Digi
cool
Houndstooth, DKNY did an almost Digi Houndstooth backpack. And a lot of Man Taylor inspirational, like men's suiting prints.
Paisley.
Yeah. Lots of plaids.
Some follards,
Yeah. So I think it'll be something to watch again.
And again, print, same kind of story with footwear and accessories as well.
I actually feel like so far there's been a bit more prints than you see typically in footwear and accessories. But like I said, I think that'll be something that it depends on the city. It depends on, the designer themselves. So I think it could go either way as Fashion Week evolves.
I'm interested more just talking a little bit about this urban explorer trend again, because I feel like we kind of moved off that one quite quickly, and you just talked about the plaids again. Can you talk about the kind of designers that we're seeing that with? I mean, I know today the Tommy Hilfiger show had this beautiful alpine lodge as the setting. Can you give other examples of some brands that are doing it? And indeed what Tommy did too?
Yeah, I mean, so Tommy Hilfiger kind of went in three directions. He looked to skiing influences, so he had some in charge of sweaters, lots of ski hats, ski goggles. It was basically on a ski lodge, the set. Then he kind of took into this Western movement and had lots of suede, had cowboy boots, floral embroidered dresses that almost looked like cowboy shirts. And then he also went to this outdoorsman type of look. So lots of denim, patchwork denim, kind of like that workman vibe.
Right.
So, yeah.
Which Rag & Bone did really well. I thought they had a really clever interpretation of like American workwear with the buffalo check utility jackets and the bowling jackets kind of embroidered with the models' names. I thought they made it was a really strong interpretation for the contemporary market.
Yeah, and I think Alexander Wang has sort of did this techno ski thing with these really bright sweaters that had the really thick roll neck, and it just kind of like it's not, we've been seeing sports come down the runways, but it's not as in your face, like head to toe like we saw in seasons past. It's items just sort of infused into the runway collection.
It's really refreshing this season. I'm glad that we're not seeing sweatshirts everywhere and mesh and
it's much more
track
subtle.
pants. Yeah, it's done in a new way, and this was necessary.
Not gone. It's still around.
Yeah, it's done in a very elevated way, because I noticed that we're not seeing literal sweatshirts, but the shape and silhouette is still popular.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, so then, keeping on that theme of specific items, Ari, you are associate retail editor. What pieces do you think are really going to carry through and be seen in the stores themselves?
Well, we talked about the coat, which, as Sheila said, will be, I think, a key item for retail. And then we talked about the sweater. And although we're still seeing a lot of cropped interpretations of the sweater and even cropped like blouses that have a t-shirt silhouette, it seems like the sweater's getting longer. And a lot of designers are pairing them over like really like silk skirts, and it has a lot of cozy movement. And then matching separates have kind of been popular for the past few seasons, but they're evolving from tailored separates and blazers into, I'm seeing a lot of knit matching separates into tonal
lots of
dressing.
Sweater knits, like it's the Lacoste show. It's a perfect example. And head to toe color. So doing a tonal look and then having the top, whether it be a sweater or a more formal woven top with a matching skirt or matching trouser.
I also think the resurgence of dark denim, we saw that for spring. That's going to continue moving into fall. Also the overall. Real traditional washes are going to be important. It goes with that whole American post-war worker theme as well, which also fits into the whole urban explorer trend as well.
I'm curious to see how like utilitarian jumpsuits play out, because I've seen a few of them. The first show that I went to, Organic by John Patrick, he showed kind of these NASA-inspired jumpsuits. And I've seen a few like workman overalls. So I'm curious how that will kind of play out at retail, but that's something that we're seeing a lot of.
Yeah, we also have seen a lot of that on the streets as well.
Yeah.
I mean, outside of the shows, street style has been really been driven by this utilitarian trend. And as we always say, is street style bubbles up and runway trends sort of trickle down. So it's interesting to see that was on the streets, and now it's really making its way into the runways.
And we also saw that Lacoste with the beanies that had the logo. What was that?
It was the name of the golf course where Rene Lacoste's wife's family owned in France. So I think it was called Centengo.
Okay. So we see a lot of girls wearing.
I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I pretend to be a little bit French there.
It sounds better when you say it.
I'm not French.
But you still sound a little better than I do.
So if we're talking, sweaters and coats and these jumpsuits, overalls, then am I right in assuming that the silhouette is a little bit looser than it has been in previous seasons? Kind of which way is that moving?
Absolutely. The
Much
silhouette
looser.
is not even close to the body so far in these New York shows. I mean, aside from your typical shows at Hervé Leger and a little more formal wear like Monique Lehoulier, overall, they're very relaxed, very loose from the body. All of the pants that we've seen so far have been wide leg and relaxed and drop crotch, whether they're a formal trouser or denim.
The only sort of body hugging that I've really seen are anything that's a blazer that's more tailored. So it's nipped in at the waist. But other than that, the rest of the outfit, the trousers are wide leg, and
the sweaters
are oversized. So I mean, other than any sort of nipped in tailored blazer, which have been few and far between as it is, I agree. I think everything's much more oversized.
Yeah, with the exception of, I've seen a lot of knit pencil skirts.
Yeah.
So,
with
yeah.
an oversized top
Right.
on top. Yeah.
And sometimes worn over like a knit legging.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of
few
that.
times.
Yeah.
Rag and bone Tibby.
You were talking about that, Aria, when we spoke previously about the layered look in terms of the legging and so forth. Are you seeing a lot of that around?
Yeah, it seems like, it goes in with that whole thing of everyone wants to be warm and cozy. So Rag & Bone did it well with like a knit legging.
And it was a ribbed knit legging.
Right.
That was exciting.
Kind of adding more texture to the look. I know Organic by John Patrick, he also kind of had like thermal leggings worn underneath. And then we talked about a styling thing that people are doing with the long skirts over pants.
Yeah.
Which, who knows if that'll take on, but it's something that we're seeing.
They're trying really hard.
Not a favorite?
No.
It's something I wouldn't wear, but I think that some designers are doing it okay.
Yeah.
Like, I liked how Victoria Beckham did it.
It'll be interesting to see how they turn that into, if it's going to be commercial, how they explore that in
Right,
a commercial
exactly.
way that's going to be okay and fit well on the average American woman.
Okay, interesting. And then what about details? What kind of things are we seeing? I know you guys were talking to the idea of furs quite a lot everywhere.
Tons of fur.
Yeah.
For accessories especially, and a little bit in footwear now. I think that'll definitely explode again as we go into the other cities, but 100% fur is one of the main things. I know we talked about last fall, tons of long-haired furs, and this season we were talking about this teddy bear fur, this plush look that we're seeing in everything, but especially in headwear and scarves, in bags, everywhere. So that'll definitely be something to watch, I think.
Yeah,
And the reason I call it a details, because correct me if I'm wrong, in apparel you're seeing it more as a trim, is that right?
Yeah, we are seeing it in all over jackets as well. But I think the development from last season has been we're seeing it, as a cuff detail, a hem detail, yoke placement. So it's not always all over, but it is having calculated placements on the items.
Okay, nice. So we have a question that's come in from our audience. Somebody is asking if we could please expand a little bit more on the patchwork. Does anybody have any opinions on that?
Sure. There's definitely been some denim patchwork, so using different indigo washes, but it's all in the indigo and blue denim color family. Then there's also not actual patchwork happening, but almost to look like it. If you look at the Tommy Hilfiger show, the tartans, within one dress, the size scale changes and it kind of gives you the look of a mattress, but it's not true mattress. So that's basically what I've been seeing for patchwork.
I haven't seen tons of true patchwork, but there's a lot of patching and material mixing details in coats. So you have a wool coat that has beautiful hair calf patching details, different kinds of fabric for the pockets, just like a real mix of all different luxe materials. So that's luxe patching.
Yeah.
And I saw a couple of like fur leather patchwork skirts here and there, and I think something you and I were talking about earlier is a lot of seaming. There's a lot of interesting seaming, so it's not again overt patchwork, but it's a lot of interest in the seams and how the materials are coming together.
Yeah, like Peter Som had reverse darts. That was interesting. Some raw edges. So lots of. We are seeing some fringe still and some tassels. Also some 3D embellishments. Not as much as spring, summer, but it's still happening in some of the shows.
Okay. One of our other questions is zippers. So we see many zippers?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I think that goes with the whole urban explorer trend and kind of this outdoorsy type of thing. I know last night, opening ceremony, they had a lot of exposed zippers, and it had like a utilitarian feel.
And contrast zipper tape color too, so that it really pops.
Yeah.
So then, what about? We've mentioned a lot of designers as we've been talking, but are there any real standout shows? Like, who are the kind of influencers in that space, or who actually even are your favorites that you've seen?
Alexander Wang. I think that's a great show and just really directional and much anticipated. Love it. I'm looking forward to seeing the Mark by Marc Jacobs show.
Yeah.
I think with the new team there, I think that could be really exciting and take a different direction. I love the Prabal show. I thought that was beautiful.
Prabal's
I don't want
You
to.
don't want to take our favorites?
I don't want to take our favorites. Sorry.
This wasn't the most directional, but I looked at it and I thought, wow, I can see a lot of girls wearing this Tibby. I think from a
Yeah.
commercial contemporary point of view, I think she kind of like has hit the nail on the head, like with making clothes that girls really want to wear,
Yeah.
styling them in kind of new ways, and it doesn't look stale. So I thought she did a really good job with that.
Can you give us some examples of the kind of, just in case somebody listening hasn't necessarily seen the show, like what kind of
Right.
things did it include?
Well,
So don't
her
think
coats,
mention TV.
her coats were great. They were like these oversized coats. I loved her use of like this light blue. I don't even know what
Oh,
to
it was
call it.
gorgeous.
Yeah, and then she kind of paired
like
it
a
against
powder
gray.
blue.
Right. And then she also showed a lot of like light wash denim, which is something that you typically don't see for autumn winter, but it looked really great. Like she had light wash denim culottes with like a black boot, really great knits. All in all, I just thought the show was
Feels like the
strong.
styling was really good.
Yeah.
Sort of pulled it all together.
Well,
exactly.
the styling, I think, is a lot of sometimes what makes the show so great. Rebecca Minkoff, I mean, one of the things I loved is the way she even styled her accessories. She had, these crossbody bags, but then she had little tech accessory pouches over them. I mean, that's a New York woman. That's what people are carrying around. They're carrying their tote, and they're carrying their cell phone, they're carrying everything. So, I mean, to see that styled on the catwalks in such an approachable, commercial way, I think makes that so easily understandable for, the average woman.
I think the ultimate New York closet for me would be the Jason Wu show. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. Like really luxurious American sportswear redone. It has a little bit of an edge to it. Beautiful color palette. I just think that was
So
a really
elegant.
beautiful show. I would love to wear that to work everywhere.
Yeah.
We would love you to too. Okay, girls, what about you guys? What are your favorites?
I was really looking at Rag and Bone closely today, and I really liked that show. There were a lot of different proportions. There were some great sweater knits in there. There were some great leggings in there. I typically wouldn't wear a legging, but for the customer who would, there's this new lace-up detailing that we haven't seen in a while that I'm seeing in a few shows. And there were also some really strong faded patterns in the collection. So I thought that was really strong. And I loved Altazara. The color in that show was done so well. I just want to keep looking at it, and I hope that our clients and customers are looking to that to create their palettes this season.
Yeah. For me, I would have to say for footwear, Alex Wang again was a big one. He had these gorgeous the boots. Yeah, he had this gorgeous laser cut boots that had this domed top line, extremely beautiful. One of the surprising shows to me was actually Monique Lullier because it was very atypical of what she typically does.
Yeah.
It was very dark and sexy and Parisian couture, I believe she called it. But it was very tight to the body. She still had her dramatic gowns that closed the show, but there was this fuchsia exotic top stitching on it and embroidery, and it was just it felt fresh, it felt new. So I think it's exciting to see designers like go out of their comfort zone.
There's
Yeah,
also
great.
a lot of small shows like Julietta, Del Pozo. Like they're really just beautiful clothes. I mean, it might not fit into like an overall trend, but they just have their own aesthetic and their own view on things, and it's just really beautifully made collections that sometimes sometimes the bigger names overshadow those smaller designers, but if you really look closely at what they're doing, it really is quite extraordinary.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because on Saturday night at Milk, they usually have a series of emerging presentations for emerging designers. And two of them, Nellie Partow and Harbison, they're all about classic, beautiful American sportswear. So, you're typically, when you talk about emerging designers, you typically think of something that's maybe youth-driven or a little bit more edgy or cool, but people are really getting back to making sure that they make beautiful classic clothes.
And well-made.
Right.
Can you talk to any of the, that was actually one of our next questions from the audience, was about which emerging designers. I mean, I know Aria writes a great piece for our site that's calling out the emerging designers before Fashion Week starts. I'm sure you were accurate.
Yeah.
Were you accurate?
So one of the designers, actually, a piece apart, they show a little bit after Fashion Week to kind of not get so lost in the sauce, I guess, as you could say. But Houghton was one of the designers that I called out, and she was actually inspired by Katharine Hepburn. And it was a beautiful collection, really menswear driven, which was great. I just mentioned Harbison and Nellie Partow. Their new slots into the Milk schedule, and they showed really beautiful classic American sportswear. And I know we're talking about women's wear, but menswear is getting more and more exciting. I mean, even as we were looking at the shows in the office, we just talked about how strong the color was and how strong the collections were.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of menswear designers like Orly and also Highland who are doing really interesting things that I think could have a huge impact on women's wear, with color. And Highland was kind of based on this whole urban explorer theme that we're talking about. So vintage Patagonia. So those were a few that kind of got me excited.
Okay, good stuff.
Yeah.
Another question's come in about which decade do we think is the most influential this season? I know you mentioned the 1940s. Is
Yes.
that kind of
That's having a big influence on hemlines, I think, especially. You could probably talk to that too. I mean, we're seeing tons of these 3/4 length, I guess you would say, mid-calf lengths. You know, typically we've seen, especially last season, lots of these super short mini skirts, or these dramatic gowns, or lots of full-length trousers and pants. And now things are definitely starting to inch up the leg a little bit from the ankle.
Also, the whole Katharine Hepburn thing, so 40s. I mean, that's essentially that decade.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think there's a huge influence with the 40s. I think that would be the overarching decade of the moment.
Yeah. And another thing that we were talking about within layering is the turtleneck.
Oh yeah.
We've been seeing the turtleneck everywhere.
Yeah, the turtleneck is like the key layering piece, and I can tell though it's moving away from the basic cotton turtleneck and into something a little bit more interesting. Like I've seen lace versions. I know at Organic he showed like a cotton turtleneck made out of like
woven.
men's shirting. Yeah, so it's getting a little bit interesting.
Yeah, so we're seeing either the turtleneck layered underneath the sweater or a white tailored men's shirt.
Right.
Those are everywhere. I haven't seen a colored button up at all yet.
Yeah.
So you're really going in either direction, but it's the quintessential base layer.
Yeah.
People are asking about the sports luxe trend. I know we've touched on sport, but can you maybe talk about how it's evolved? Obviously, the deluxe side of sportswear has been something that we've been tracking for a while, but I think I'm right in saying it's moved on a little bit this season. Can you talk about the difference between what we're seeing in sportswear now compared to last season?
I mean, true active inspired sports. Well, I think it's obviously has moved a little bit more into ski. Like I said before, I think the whole Sochi, what's happening now has been very influential in what designers are putting into their collections. I think before we would see like a head-to-toe sports look. Not so much
like
anymore.
Baseball,
Yeah, like you'd have the bomber jacket, and then you'd have the pull-on elasticized pants, and then you'd have the sweatshirt. So it's the whole head-to-toe. It's like someone could potentially go to the gym in the outfit.
Right.
But now it's just like there might be a sweatshirt, but that might be with a great pair of wide leg pants, or a utility jacket that's mixed in with all of these pieces are mixed in with other things, so it's not so in your face. Those pieces are still there. Don't get me wrong. They're just styled in a way that is sort of just folded into the collections because I think designers know that those pieces really resonate with consumers and with retailers.
Yeah.
The idea of actual sports luxe itself, is that still on the catwalk? The kind of the really luxurious side of sportswear that we've been seeing the last 2 seasons?
It's not as out there. It's not as I'm wearing a baseball tee or I'm wearing track pants. I think it's evolved, into outdoor sports, like Sheila was saying. So you have the ski, you have hunting, you have hiking, and it's more about the woodland sports.
Okay, interesting. Good stuff. So, an inevitable move from the catwalk is to talk about the street shots that we've been doing out there outside the Lincoln Center and elsewhere around New York. What have we been seeing? Does anybody have any insights on that front, or what have we been seeing on the street that actually has been impacting on the catwalk, whether that be the last couple of seasons that you've seen this time around?
Well, we talked about the beanie that they showed at Lacoste. I mean, if you need to find your way to a fashion show, follow the neon beanie. Everybody's wearing them. And then Lacoste kind of did that with the logo. There's pink coats are everywhere. I mean, everybody's wearing a pink coat. And I think on the runway, that's been interpreted into a more of a salmon color, would you say? Kind of, and I like
corally.
Corally. And then it's texture. Like everyone's coat is fuzzy. Everyone's wearing fur. Which we've seen tons of fur on the runway.
Tons of either pony hair or fur inserts with wool combinations.
So those are a couple of things I've seen.
Lots of bright outerwear too. I'm seeing, bright bottoms with bright jackets and lots of color clashing and mixing, and I mean, everyone's ready to stand out this week.
Exactly.
Right, but I do think people have adopted pretty much, shoring themselves up with the appropriate footwear. I see a few people,
with
teetering
sneakers.
about wearing the incorrect shoes for the black ice that's all over New York City. I think people have sort of wised up a bit and have really, know that it's really function over fashion sometimes. But there's a lot of boots, and people are really bundling up as well, but they want to look good.
Yeah,
So,
they definitely want to look good because all the designer winter boots are sold out. The Burberry winter boots sold out of Bergdorf, so
you would know.
I would know.
So anyway, so I do think that there is more of a swing towards being practical this time around. That you really don't have too much of a choice these days.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's freezing outside.
Yeah.
It's
Pretty
below
unbearable.
freezing.
And not slowing down.
No, exactly. Okay, so once we move from New York, obviously we have London, Milan, then Paris. Are there any things that either you're particularly looking forward to in those cities, or things that you really think will carry through in terms of the trends?
I'm really excited for London. Last spring, summer, Christopher Kane and Preen by Thornton Borghese were two of my favorite shows of the season, so I really can't wait to see what they do next.
I'm excited for Nicolas Gasquier's debut at Louis Vuitton. That's super
be
exciting. I'm looking forward to that. And similar to Jacqueline, I always love the London shows. I think there's so much newness coming out of London and a lot of directional collections.
And usually a lot of print, so maybe that's where we'll get our print
Right.
For footwear and accessories, I think I always look forward most to Paris. I think it's just always so chic, so sophisticated, very elevated, and somehow so many of the commercial stores like for Zara, for example, are very quick to kind of put that in their stores and emulate what's going on at that level so that people can really have that as our tangible items. So Paris for me is always my favorite.
Sheila, anything from you?
Louis Vuitton. I think that would be
Same.
sort of, I think that's
The
going to be
big
a
one
real
this season.
crowd pleaser
Yeah.
for sure. For sure.
And what about trends? What have we seen here that you think really will translate through the whole season and we'll be talking about in a few weeks' time when we kind of do a big wrap up?
I think definitely the utilitarian trend
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
have
Sounds
different
like a big one.
machinations as time goes on through the other cities. I think the whole idea of the coat that will brave the elements that is actually gorgeous and luxurious. I think that is going to be a key item for the season for sure. I think that's going to be seen all over the runways.
I think luxury is just going to continue to get more playful. And we've kind of seen that here. And I know that like a Max Mara coat and a Dries Van Noten coat were made of the teddy bear fur. And even the Prada coats that have those beautiful color, the ones that we keep seeing Anna Wintour and Marc Jacobs wear. I think luxury is going to continue to get really fun, and it's a lot of luxe fabrics, but really flirty and fun.
That's exciting, Aria.
I can't wait for the Miu Miu show.
That's always a great show.
That will be fun. That will definitely do it in a playful way.
Yeah.
And obviously there's still a few days left of New York, so what final shows are you guys looking forward to?
Mark by mark for me.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I think it'll be an interesting change of the guard there in terms of the design and the styling team. So let's see what that brings.
I mean, Michael Kors is always a great show because it's just so high energy. And I think I'm also intrigued by what Marc Jacobs will do now that he has more time to devote to that line. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Birch.
Yeah.
Should be fun going there tomorrow morning. That's always a great show because that sort of resonates what true American sportswear is about with a twist and with a very edited eye. So I think that could be a great show tomorrow. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, those are definitely the top ones for me too.
Me too.
Okay, great. All right, well, listen, thank you very much, girls. I hope the rest of your fashion week goes well here, and obviously for our teams then in London, Milan and Paris. We'll be doing another hangout at the beginning of March, just as Paris ends, with experts from our global team, as well as some buyers from around the world who will be giving us their insights on the runway shows and the big trends to carry forward to autumn winter 2014-15. So please join us then. More detail will be going out shortly, but always follow our hashtag WGSN Hangout and find more information there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.